Okay, let's bring in pilot Joshua Schirard to get a sense of what the crew on that Delta flight was dealing with. He's in Houston. Joshua, I think for many of us, the first question we have is just how a passenger jet could flip like this.
Yeah, while we only have a limited amount of information that we know right now, what we do know is that it looks like the initial approach and even the final moments of that approach looked fairly normal. The granular data that we have from the ADSB shows that it looked like a fairly standard approach. Speed was good. Our vertical descent was well within normal parameters, and our altitude was also good. So that tells me that it doesn't look like there was any big issues prior to crossing the threshold. What we do know is that we had a very windy day up there in Toronto, and especially a lot of that wind was coming from a kind of a 45-degree headwind. So we had a big crosswind component. Now, this isn't necessarily abnormal, and pilots do this all the time, but the other component that we're looking at is a lot of snow and ice on the ground. And snow and ice in an airplane works a lot like the same way it does in a car. I actually just came in from Aspen this morning, and there wasn't nearly as much snow and ice on the ground, but we were sliding around on the taxiway. So I think what we're looking at here is a lot of that crosswind component coupled with some snow and some ice and a lot of factors that just unfortunately came together all at the wrong time to cause this accident.
All right, and obviously the investigation is yet to begin, really. But you have said that in a case like this, there's the initial crash and then the secondary crash. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so when we talk about collisions in any kind of vehicles, airplanes or cars are the same way. The initial crash, that primary collision, happens when that vehicle strikes another object, in this case, the ground, or in the case of your car, another vehicle. That causes, the initial momentum to stop and the initial inertia to keep going. What we have and what can be more dangerous are secondary collisions, things flying around inside that object or inside that vehicle. It could be people, it could be other objects that aren't strapped down that are still traveling at that 120 miles an hour even after the collision that can cause even further damage and further casualties. What we see here, and I know it sounds fairly contradictory, but people should look at the pictures and the videos of this aircraft sitting upside down and realize how safe air travel is. We have a plane that was going 120 miles an hour that hit the ground, that hit the earth, rolled, sheared off its wings, sheared off its tail, came to rest on its top, and we're having all those people leave that aircraft. It really is an engineering marvel, and that comes down to the design factors, how the seats are configured so that they stay with the fuselage and don't cause those secondary collisions. And the way that the aircraft is designed to break apart like that, designed to have crumple zones, just like you would in your car to absorb that impact so that it keeps that fuselage intact, protects those inside.
So stunning footage that we've been seeing all day. And you're saying that actually it happened as it was supposed to. What do you make of the fact that this crash, miraculously resulted in no fatalities and only over about a dozen people injured?
I think that's once again a testament to the engineering and design of the aircraft itself, but further is the professionalism, efficiency, and training of the crew. We look at flight attendants and cabin crew, and unfortunately as passengers, a lot of times we look at them as the people that get my drinks and my snacks in my flight. But these people, these crew attend weeks and weeks and weeks of intense training. And I guarantee you that training is not how to take your drink order. They go through every emergency contingency that can be thought of, and they perform it in a controlled environment so that when something like this happens, something so abnormal as a plane ending up on its roof, they know how to act. And I guarantee that the survivability of this particular accident was due in no small part to the professionalism and efficiency and the actions of that cabin crew, those flight attendants that were able to get people out of that aircraft safely.
Okay, well, Joshua, the focus now will be on the investigation. Walk us through what happens next.
So what we're going to see is of course, the American NTSB and FAA come in and work with the Canadian Transportation Safety Bureau as well to start this investigation. What they're going to want to look at is not only the conditions of the weather and airport at the time, but if there were any other contributing factors. Were there any other mechanical issues with the aircraft that could have caused this, loss of control? They're going to look at black box data, CVR, the cockpit voice recorder. What data did the pilots have available to them as far as wind or braking action reports on the runway? What did they know as far as runway conditions were concerned? They want to know exactly what data was available to them, and then what was going on with the aircraft prior to this crash. That, coupled with the current environmental conditions, the winds, the ice and snow on the runway, to really get a big picture as to what happened in the seconds leading up and seconds after touchdown. When we, as an aviation industry and aviation professionals, when we look at something like this, when we turn on our TV and we see a crash like this, the first thing we ask ourselves is, how can I make sure this doesn't happen again? What can I do on my next flight? I have to fly tomorrow. So I'm wondering, hey, is there something that we can learn right now to make sure that if I go into a place that's snowy, that's icy, that's windy, is there something I can do, something I can learn right now so that doesn't happen again? And then furthermore, at the conclusion of the investigation, what can we do as an industry, as a profession, to move forward and make sure that we can keep this from happening in the future?
All right, so many questions yet to be answered. We appreciate your insight. Thanks so much for this. Joshua Schirard.
Thanks for having me.
In Houston.